Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee. Looks like there's some signal issues going on tonight. I'm just noticing, so just bear that in mind. Hopefully, it will behave itself. So sometimes that has to do with data that's coming in. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What we'll do. I'm going to move through some of these satellite loops and get rid of them because this way we can perhaps improve the stream health and not have any interference. So I also have a couple of announcements I want to make. So we're going to have to do it this way. I know I got Israel asking me to start with the upper air first and do the tropics later, but I can't. I was going to lose. I don't want to lose the stream signal. So the satellite loop on the Atlantic side is showing Kirk and Leslie. Kirk is a minimal tropical storm now. If you look on the in the Caribbean here, in the Eastern Caribbean, you can see that the circulation center is actually well to the west of the main convection. The strong wind shear continues. And by the way, the shear issue is all across the Caribbean basin. You can see the layers of clouds. The higher cloud tops are moving west to east. The lower cloud tops are moving east to west. So this is not conducive for tropical storm development. So this is going to go away. Leslie is back, and if you'll notice on the loop here as the day is worn on, the clouds have gotten a bit tighter around the center, so we're back to seeing this as a subtropical storm, and it's probably going to make a transition over into a tropical storm in short order. As far as the advisory goes, I've got the forecast. Kirk is going to disappear, so I really didn't think it's too much worth paying attention to specifically. But the motion on Leslie is going to be toward the southwest over the next 4 to 5 days or so, and very, very slowly at that. So we're not really talking about a whole lot of distance here. Going from its initial position, which is at 36.1 and 48.1 west, 36.1 north, 48.1 west. That is closer to the Azores than anything else. And top winds are 50 miles an hour, carrying a motion of west to 10. The general motion is probably going to be more southwest, again, right into Tuesday. And this is going to be around for a while. But at this point, I'm not seeing any kind of impact to any land areas. The main concern is going to be with Rosa, Hurricane Rosa, which this morning reached its peak intensity and probably if briefly achieved Category 5 status overnight, although it was in between advisory time, and it was noted by the forecaster at the Hurricane Center with regards to the satellite estimates, but that was the peak. And as we've gone through the day, you'll notice that the eye has filled to some degree, and it has weakened. Top winds are down now to 120 miles an hour as it is moving very, very slowly, still toward the northwest, and gradually going to make a turn more toward the north and then eventually to the northeast. All indications are that we're going to see this make a landfall somewhere. Now it's a little bit further to the north with every run, so they kind of pushed it up further north in the northern part of the Baja Peninsula and weakening it to a tropical storm before it does so. We looked at the ocean water temperatures in this area. They fall fairly rapidly. They're generally under 25 Celsius. So the only thing that will help, will cause this to hold on to strength is the fact that it will be moving at a reasonably decent clip. So it may not spend that much time over that water, but it is going to weaken it. I think the big impact here is going to be the rain that will fall in southeastern California and through much of Arizona. The good news with that is that it's going to be fast, and it's not going to stall or get locked away down there. That remnant low is going to wind up getting shot up toward the northeast. With regards to the upper air pattern going forward, we really don't see too much change. I actually backed it to Tuesday, so you can see how we got to today. You've got a trough that runs from northernmost Canada extending down into the central Gulf states. The trough axis is at about 90 to 95, and it's very broad. A ridge cut off in the Gulf of Alaska, a split flow in the Pacific, in the East Pacific, with energy that's getting forced toward the coast of California. So that really opens up the door. This cutoff low that is sitting just northwest of San Francisco creates a weakness all the way down into the subtropical region on the Pacific side, and then it pulls up Rosa, who then responds to the next upper air low that swings down and around, and that's the one that just kind of picks it up and kicks it away to the northeast. So again, the good thing here is that we're not going to see this stalling out once it moves into the southwest. It is going to get kicked away to the northeast. And in the meantime, here in the east, our weather is going to be relatively tranquil for a while. We've got a couple of weak systems to deal with this coming week. When you watch the upper air pattern, there is a bit of a shortwave trough that comes through here late Tuesday, and that's going to be with a weak cold front, a dying cold front. The ridge pretty much stays in the eastern half of the country, though it is a bit on the flat side, and that it flexes a bit, but not in a big way. And you still have energy swinging around out of Canada. Once again, the GFS, and to a certain extent also the European and the Canadian too, over the past several days on different model runs, it keeps wanting to make a trough in the eastern part of the United States next weekend. And it's while it's there, it's not nearly as pronounced or as deep as it was on prior runs. So you start to question just how much cool air is going to get into the eastern part of the United States. The general trend on the models still seems to be with a trough in the west and kind of a flattish ridge in the east. So the upside is that if this is correct, much of the time over the next couple of weeks, the rain issues will be kept at bay unless there's something tropical in the mix. And most of the action is going to wind up being in the west, with the troughing in the western part of the U.S. When you will put the rainfall, again, we can't write this in stone, obviously, and I think it's probably better if we use a tighter region here across the U.S. Now remember, this is a 16-day rainfall forecast. So for areas, for example, that have been getting hit hard, like the interior mid-Atlantic and southern areas of the Northeast, we're talking about rainfall amounts generally under an inch or an inch and a half at most, but let's use an inch and a quarter as a compromise over the next 16 days, which is far different from what we've had. You can see the outcome in the southwest with the rains from that, mostly from Rosa, on the order of some 8 inch amounts being indicated there over the next 2 weeks. And the southeast, not really all that wet. The northwest, the Pacific Northwest coast, getting into some rain. We do have some rain that actually extends pretty far south into California, where if you're going to have a trough in the west this time of year, or any time of year, anytime you have a trough in the west that extends as far south as this one does, you're going to run into some shower and rain issues along the way. So I want to get some proof as far as these models with these continuing troughs that they keep showing in the east, and it always depends from one run to another. It's there, it's not there. The cooler air is robust. It's not as robust. The best course has been to just go with the idea that the models are overdoing it in the longer range. There's Rosa on the GFS. It's got a track as good as any of what the other models are showing with respect to landfall, and you can see the big rains for southeastern California. That red area being indicated, that is 10 inches or more of rain, and that moves on up into northwestern Arizona. It's fast. This is not stalling, as we said. So this is landfall Monday night. This is Tuesday afternoon. The low center is already moved away to the northeast, and you're going to start to see the rains diminish. So a lot of rain in a very, very short period of time on very, very dry ground spells the potential for some serious flash flooding. Meanwhile, here in the east, we really don't have a whole lot happening with this setup. There's a frontal boundary to the north on Monday, which just sort of disappears, and then another one tries to come through on Tuesday night with maybe a shower, a little bit of a backdoor front there, but really not too much with that because it goes right back the other way. Perhaps a slightly more important front on Thursday, or at least it was supposed to be, but no, that is weak. So we really have to wait till maybe next Saturday before we get a strong enough push to get into some cooler air. And again, this was supposed to be a big high coming down and enveloping all of the east, and it's backed away from that. Again, we could wind up. This is the 12Z run. I don't think it's not the 18Z run. So this is the 12Z run, and the 18Z run may very well go back the other way. We could take a look at that. But I am not. We're at the time of year now. We're going into early October. The weather usually is fairly tranquil unless there's a tropical storm running around. The weather here in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast should be tranquil, and this is dry for the Mid-Atlantic, by the way. So a blessing for you guys in the interior Mid-Atlantic and into the Blue Ridge Mountains. Here's the new GFS. We have it out to about day 6. Same idea here, at least so far. And front goes through, very weak. We are as far as next Thursday at this point. So we got to wait now to see if this model takes us out any further. Why don't we take a look at what it's doing with Leslie? And there it is. So at least through the next 6 days, it's got this southwest motion and then you see it just kind of sits it there. This is at 31 and about 55. So it's pretty far north at 31 north, 55 degrees west. It's way, way out. I'm trying to get an idea when you look at the upper air going forward in the long range. You don't have one that really favors this, at least at this point. The Atlantic jet is pretty busy. I think it's going to be a matter of whether there's a short wave in there that is far enough, that comes far enough south to pick it up eventually. There's a ridge off the east coast, and then we have this ridge that's out in the central Atlantic west of the Azores. Sorry, there we go. And you got it right there. So just moving this on the upper air, the GFS would suggest that the strength of the jet stream, the northern part of the jet stream, is eventually going to be strong enough to kick it out to the northeast. It is, by the way, picking up on something off the southeast coast or between the Bahamas and Bermuda. This actually goes back. It starts, and I'm not sure why it does this. There's a general weakness here that's out from the Atlantic southwest toward the Caribbean, and the bottom part of that sort of breaks off and separates into its own system there, north between the Bahamas and Bermuda, along about 6 or 7 days from now. Who knows if that's real or not? The model runs have had it and then they haven't had it. I'm not. I'll defer judgment on that and wait a bit longer. And it's kind of an easy night tonight here, folks. There really isn't a whole lot happening with respect to the weather in going into this weekend. Plus, I actually toyed with the idea of maybe taking a break tonight, but I figured I might want to take a break over the weekend at some point, being that I am going to take some vacation this weekend and next week. So live streams are going to be there, but they are going to be a little bit. I've been trying to keep them structured at 7 o'clock, or in tonight's case at 6 o'clock, but I may be moving them around depending on how my day goes. More than likely, if they're going to happen, I'm thinking they'll probably happen later in the evening as opposed to earlier. So just bear that in mind. I haven't had a vacation in almost a year, so I really need it. Okay, so let me get to a couple of announcements, and I've got a little bit more weather to do after that. But with respect to the board and the chats and everything else, and please try and understand, I have to manage not only the software doing this broadcast, but then I have to go back on the chat, and if you guys have been talking for 10 or 15 minutes, I have to scroll back and read all of it. So it's quite, it's more than probable that I may miss your comment or post or your question. But if I do, please understand that it's kind of hard. If I had a producer here that was doing all the technical stuff, then I could have everything under control. So if I don't get to your question, comment, or post, forgive me. Don't hesitate that if once I come back on the screen to retype your question, so this way I know I will see it. And again, and if I don't, save it for the next show. If you're a Patreon member, you can just send me the message there, and I will get to it because it's much more relaxed. Once I'm off the air, all I'll do is I'll get the notification that you posted something, and I'll respond to it. As far as a week from Monday, so mark this down. On Monday, October the 9th, roughly at 7 o'clock, I'll probably be a few minutes after 7 o'clock because I want to make sure this is going to be perfect. But I'm going to have a special guest on, and that guest is going to be Dr. Judah Cohen. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Judah Cohen is, he is he's a great guy, for one thing. I follow him on Twitter. He has developed a following. He does a lot of research with regards to snow and snow cover growth in Siberia and North America and its relationship to the winters here. And a lot of folks, his theory came front and center back several years ago, and there are a bunch of us that pay very close attention to what he has to say. And he also does a lot of work with regards to the changes in the stratosphere and how they impact the weather across North America. So I think he's a very interesting guest. If you are a snow weenie, you will I think you'll really enjoy him, and this will be an opportunity for you to throw some questions regarding the winters and snow and the whys about the atmosphere, why things happen the way they did. One of the things I want to discuss with him is the four nor'easters of last year in March, and how that all seemed to start with a huge stratospheric warming event that occurred in the middle part of February. If you remember, that was when we saw that big warming up in the polar region where temperatures went above freezing in the North Pole. Hang on one second. I just want to flip the light on a little bit so I'm a little less dark and a bit better lit. So he's agreed to be here, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll learn a lot. So this is definitely going to be a good learning experience for everybody. So that's Monday, October the 8th. Okay, Monday, October the 8th, and it will be at roughly 7 o'clock Eastern time. And I will continue to throw reminders up there. Patreon members have already gotten there first. It's on Twitter as well, and it's on my Facebook page. But I will definitely make sure that you guys are reminded next week, because I'd love to see a nice big crowd for this. Now, the other thing, as far as the weather is concerned for this weekend here in the Northeast, to bring up the eastern satellite view. We still are dealing with leftover clouds. We had another rain event last night into early this morning. It was quick, but it was basically on the order of a ½ an inch to 1.5 inches. That is moving out, and finally we're getting drier air that's coming in from the northwest, and skies are going to clear out tonight. There's a reinforcing surge of dry air over the Great Lakes, and there's some clouds ahead of that, but much of that cloud cover and the shower activity with that is going to wind up falling apart. And by the way, in terms of signs of autumn, you need only take a look at the weather.gov warnings map. You've got a large area of frost advisories and freeze warnings up for the northern plains and the upper Midwest, most of the state of Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin. This is the first full, real cool push that's coming down. So get ready, because in the subsequent weeks that follow, I'm sure we're going to see over time stronger and stronger pushes of cooler air. And by the way, in the southwest, We already have a slew of flash flood watches up for parts of southwestern and western Arizona, southeastern California, and southern Nevada, including Las Vegas. So this is going to have some impact there in Vegas, by the way. And eventually, I think you're going to see additional flash flood watches going up for much of the rest of the state of Arizona and even into parts of Utah and Colorado. This is going to be for the early part of next week. And the weather predictions, the WPC folks, with their 7-day rainfall forecast, big amounts there in the southwest, from Baja, southeastern California, much of the western half of Arizona into parts of Utah, and you're talking about several inches. And there are going to be some places that are going to wind up with half a foot or more of rain. Also across the Great Lakes, which makes sense. They're at the base of that trough that's coming down out of Canada, and the boundary of the ridge not too far away, so that's where you get some action. And you're seeing some hefty rainfall amounts being indicated across the next 7 days. But look at the mid-Atlantic and much of the coastal areas of the Northeast, and even some of the interior areas of the Northeast. We're talking about half an inch of rain or less, and in some cases, no rain at all. So for a good chunk of the state of Virginia and North Carolina, there will be no rain forecast for the next 7 days, and that's very good news for those flood-prone areas. Flood-prone because of all the rain that has occurred within the last couple of weeks between Florence and then these warm fronts and these stalling fronts that become warm fronts and move northward, and the southeast flow coming in off the warm ocean. Good tropical forcing at times, that you wind up with all this rain. So I'm on the board with you guys. So Israel, I'm sorry. I saw your request about me flipping the order of my show, but I just couldn't do it tonight. And as far as the El Nino is concerned, with respect to that, I don't know how much impact it's going to have. I'm actually paying more attention to the fact that the East Pacific Oscillation has been strongly negative, and I think that's the reason why Canada has been so cold, and now that cold air bleeding down into the northern plains and in the western Great Lakes, that is being EPO driven. That is something I think we need to watch as we go deeper into the fall and into the early part of the winter, because that was a key critical element in the early start of our winter last year, when it got so cold during the month of January. And Jason Schaefer pointing out there's red flag and flash flood watches at the same time. Yeah, I guess it's incredibly dry until the rain comes, and they got to warn for both. John Trabacchino, will there be snow in Quebec City next week? Well, I didn't give it a close look. Okay. Oh, no, why don't I bring up the map of southeastern Canada? I don't even know if that goes far enough west. We'll give it a whirl here. Doesn't look like it. I mean, you know what? The precip is so light, John. Monday night and a Tuesday. I don't know that I would necessarily include it in the forecast, and even then, we're talking about borderline cold here. I'm saying at least through Friday, which is as far out as I can see at the moment. I would say probably not. You'll be in Canada all next week. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely cool out there. It's colder as you go further into the further west than it is in the eastern part of Canada. We can show you the anomalies here. Hang on. As far as the temperature anomalies are concerned, move to the top. I am so looking forward to this vacation, folks. You have no idea. Yeah, I mean, if you look through much of next week, I mean, there's a little. It's chilly to start the week here in eastern Canada, but it does warm it up toward the end of the week. We start to see temperatures going above normal until you get these weather fronts to work on through. And with respect to total snowfall, know, I mean, how much of this is real, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of experience knowing how well the GFS snowfall maps, how well do they do in southeastern Canada. How meaningful are these numbers? I'm not sure. You know, you even have some snow being indicated into parts of New Brunswick. I don't know. But my guess is if it does happen, it's not likely to hang around for too long. And I don't think it looks like anything, you know, that you really need to concern yourself about. Thankfully, it's still early October. Maybe if we were a little more than a month to 6 weeks down the road in the middle of November, then I'd say, well, you know what? Might be a totally different story. Okay, let me come back to some of your questions and comments. Thank you, Wayne S. Lots to see and do in D.C., which is where I'm headed. In fact, I'll be there tomorrow. I don't want to get involved in the politics of all of what's going on down there. Although I do, history is something that I do enjoy delving into and reading about, but you know, it's with all the stuff that's going on right now with the Supreme Court nomination and all. I'm sure if we head toward the White House or the Capitol building tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit hectic. Patricia Owens praying that your sister in San Bernardino will be okay. I'm thinking, you know, at least up that far north and west of where it goes in, they should not have a problem. Let me just double check my my geography here. Hang on. Oh, I mean, that's way north and west of where this is going in from what I'm, you know, yeah, this is not, no issue. I mean, you're talking up toward L.A., you know, there might be a little bit of impact, barely, back to San Diego. Even there, it might be a bit of a stretch unless it winds up going further north. But San Bernardino is way out of range, Patricia, so I think you're fine, and I think they're fine. And I don't see any big changes in the forecast that would change that, what I just said. Scott Briller, you got your chance to dry out today. See, I did scroll all the way back, Scott. I did see that you got you know, you are up there, so I'm not ignoring you. Are we still looking at an El Nino winter? From what I'm seeing, what I'm seeing, weather lover, central and west-based El Nino. So that may have a different outcome. This is where I would say try not to get too wrapped up in the El Nino, not El Nino, and focus more on what's happening in the shorter range, if only because of the fact that while the El Nino might argue for a certain type of weather pattern, a general type of weather pattern, it's not something that's continuous. Even in the most stubborn of patterns, you do get breaks. The atmosphere does have a tendency to want to reload, and the and sometimes you can get really lost in your own short range forecast if you focus too much on the what's going on the long range side. In the meantime, I would pay more attention to the status of the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, which is kind of like it's kind of like the North Atlantic Oscillation or the Greenland Block, except it operates on the Pacific side. When I get a little time when we get back, and certainly before the winter happens, I'll do something with regards to explaining all these, the Pacific North America pattern, the East Pacific Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, what they, they basically measure changes in pressure, and certain pressure patterns lead to certain outcomes, but there's no magic bullet with any of this stuff. Just because you have one of those indicators or all of those indicators in your favor does not necessarily mean that you're going to get an outcome regarding a snowstorm or very cold weather or very warm weather. Nonetheless, they can be calculated, and I can show you how the geographic regions that each index measures, and I think that'll go a long way to clearing up a few things in your head this way. You got a little, you look at those oscillations. When we get closer to the wintertime, they're going to become more and more important. Let's see, rivers have pretty much all drained to the coast now, Roy Wilson. That's good to hear. I assume you're from the Carolinas. That is very, very good to hear. Cold in Chicago for 99 Wolves 17. Yeah, you're in that trough, so you got that cool air, and that's a good thing. Johnny Quest, can the Mediterranean Sea have hurricanes? I think they've been calling them medicanes. They are some kind of hybrid. I'm going to have to do a little more research on it. They are not purely tropical, but that they are not cold core either. So they might be what they used to call neuter canes. Maybe they are somewhat subtropical in nature, but they tend to be kind of small, tight little systems. But we have seen them over the last several years. Some of them pop up there, and that is what apparently was going on this week. I have unfortunately not had any time to really look at all of that. Got to remember, folks, I'm managing 3 websites, social media accounts, YouTube live streams, Patreon live streams, and I have to look at the actual weather going on here before I really can spend time looking at the weather going on elsewhere. So if I miss out on some of this stuff, please be flexible with me, okay? A huge Pacific storm in the Pacific can alter the winter patterns, as says Joe Garcia. Absolutely. You get some of those Pacific powerhouses that go up into the Gulf of Alaska, and they can just wreak havoc on the overall pattern across North America. And in fact, the typhoons and the hurricanes in the Pacific right now need to be watched, because as they recurve, the ones that recurve and move northward in the West Pacific and eventually find their way northeastward toward the Bering Sea and the Aleutians in the Gulf of Alaska, they could reinforce a pattern that's already in existence. They could reinforce a low in the Aleutians, or perhaps drive a low from there into the Gulf of Alaska, which would change the pattern across North America. So definitely those are things that absolutely need to be watched. Okay, I think tonight, it's a Friday night, and we're not going to go much longer than what we're doing right now. But I do want to I just want to take the opportunity to, again, let you know, if you came on late, a week from Monday, October the 8th, and we're going to have a guest on the YouTube live stream, Dr. Judah Cohen. If you follow Siberian snow cover growth, he's done a lot of research about that, the link between snow cover growth in the month of October in Siberia and in Eurasia, and what it means for the winters in the eastern part of North America. So he's got a following among meteorologists and snow weenies, and he's a big snow fan. We'll have him on here. He could explain a lot. He's done a lot of work regarding the stratosphere and the changes going on in the stratosphere and how they impact the weather down here on the ground. And he'll offer some opinions probably about the upcoming winter, with looking at what clues we might have now and what that might mean going forward. That's, again, Monday, October the 8th at roughly 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Those of you who are interested, you can find more weather that I produce, and that is on my Patreon platform. You can see it here. This is what it looks like, and it's basically one place that you can go to get all weather, all my website posts. I've been doing daily videos for Patreon members, usually in the morning. They are not visible to the general public, but only to Patreon members. So if you're interested, I've got a link up on the chat, and you can just go there and sign up. It's a $2 a month subscription price. There are some higher tiers. If you're feeling generous, by all means, I appreciate it. Thank you. And it's just one way that you can support what I'm doing here on my channel. The other way, by the way, is through Amazon, as I'm member of Amazon's affiliate advertising program, which is designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees from Amazon by linking to it. So if you shop on Amazon, if you use the link that's on the descriptor to this video or the descriptor to this live stream, and I'm putting up the link to Amazon also in the chat. You shop on Amazon, you get your stuff. Amazon throws me back some coin. I get a cigar or two out of it, and everybody's happy. So thank you for those of you who have done that as well. Wayne S. is on there, and he likes it, and so does Scott Brilla. Lots of emails, Wayne S. To me or to you? Well, you do get your notifications. You know, this is one of the reasons why I switched over to the platform, by the way, because of the fact that Facebook has deliberately restricted a lot of accounts with regard, a lot of the business pages. I put up weather posts all the time. I've got people that are subscribers, are on my Facebook page. They have their notifications turned on. They don't get notifications of live streams. They don't get notifications of new website posts up. So it's ridiculous. And particularly during Hurricane Florence, they deliberately have been restricting access to audience. And I find that just unacceptable. YouTube has been a much better platform. I am seriously, by the way, considering moving the Joe and Joe Show off of Facebook and moving it to YouTube, because we're doing. I'm seeing, my my Facebook audience has been cut by almost 2/3 in the last 2 months, and nothing's really changed in terms of how many people I have on my Facebook page. That number keeps getting bigger, but they just keep restricting, and I'm just not going to play that game with them. So YouTube has been much more generous. When if you subscribe and you got the notifications checked, you know when I'm on. And I've seen the outcome. The chat is great. You people, everybody is very active and participates, and I really like to see that. So I'm going to see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. But if I continue to have this problem, you may find the Joe and Joe Show here at 9 o'clock, at 9:15 Eastern Time, as opposed to, and we'll do it live rather than put the tape up, the replay up, and I'll have my earlier live stream on my own, and then we'll do the Joe and Joe live stream together later on in the evening. So I'll keep you posted regarding that. And I think that's pretty much it. There really isn't a whole lot else happening. We don't have any, the tropical systems in the Atlantic are not threatening, so it's a quiet last weekend of the month of September. Mike Akulian, I've always called it fake book, and the whole world knows about you once you're on there. Can't understand all the hype about Russian collusion. That's a bunch of crap, Facebook. Well, look, you know what? Facebook was up until the last year or so. I didn't really have any problem with it. I started noticing issues back in April, and it coincided with the amount of pressure that the company had started to see. I began seeing a noticeable drop in reach, in comments, in likes, in my website traffic, and I began receiving, complaints from people that were on my page saying, "Hey, I got my notifications turned on and I'm not getting your stuff. What gives? Have you stopped doing it?" And I was like, "No, I'm doing it more than I've ever done." So there was a problem then, and I think what really sort of pushed it over the edge for me. Now those of you who are on here with me on a daily basis, we rarely talk politics here, if at all. It's not a subject matter that is appropriate for this channel. So I certainly, I have my opinions on things, but we haven't really discussed it, nor do I care to discuss it. And frankly, I'm thinking you don't really care either. You want to know about weather and everything that was related to that, and that's the way it should be. Well, I don't understand why, but if you think back to the very end of the first weekend of August was the weekend that Facebook purged a number of accounts that were on a number on the fringe politically. Now, my Facebook page wasn't purged, but what got little play was the fact that I talked to a number of friends of mine that were in the same position. What didn't get much play was that a number of accounts of Facebook pages that use Facebook's tools in order to generate income, and people that are running their business off Facebook found themselves not being able to use those tools, whether it be for sponsorship of posts or any one of a number of other things. And they did that to me. They gave me no reason. All they said was that I violated their policy. Their policy, and that if I wanted to know what I did wrong, that I was to read through their 200-page manual of policy. I was not doing that, so I challenged them. I suggested that they were witch hunting me for some reason, and I went public with it. And the funny thing is, every time I've gone public about this and have had one of these Facebook rants, I have gotten one of my tools back. And up until now, I've gotten everything back. The ability to have sponsored posts, the ability to tag businesses, the ability to run ads on my Facebook videos, all of that. I still don't know what the problem was, and neither do any of my friends that have had the similar issue. And there is one tool left that a publishing tool that some people use, where it takes a website post and converts it to a mobile-friendly post in the Facebook into a Facebook format. And they took that away from me. I'm still waiting to get that back. That is the only tool that I haven't gotten back. And frankly, at this point, I was reluctant to use it to begin with. I used it for a couple of months, haven't been able to use it since early part of August. And frankly, I really don't care if they give it back to me or not, because I'm on to bigger and better things. So this is one of the reasons why I'm thinking about moving the Joe and Joe Weather Show to YouTube. This is one of the reasons why I developed the platform on Patreon, because this way I can get all of you people in one place, and if you like weather, you get notified. We do our thing, and we don't have to deal with all the nonsense, all the noise that is going on with regards to Facebook or Twitter or whichever service we're talking about. So that pretty much wraps it up here. So now you know what's going on. Okay. And yeah, I could go to Instagram, Johnny Trabacchino, but the problem is, I can't be in all these places all day long. That's the issue. And yeah, Jason's right. Facebook owns Instagram, but I could go to Instagram. I don't really have, but it's how do I spend the time? I have to write and produce content on my websites. I have to do these live streams. Etc., etc. And my audience here on YouTube is where I think gets the most play and the most benefit, and this is where I would rather be in terms of the platform. It's the easiest one to use. I'd rather be here. But if I want to do Instagram on top of everything else, that's one more thing to do, and there's only so many hours in the day, and that's why I'm all burned out and need I need a vacation. Dio Nankumar, some of us don't have all social media. That's correct, and that's why I think YouTube is a good compromise for those of you who don't have social media, so we can come here and do it here. The Facebook people can come to YouTube. Okay, I rather respect the wishes of the people in a sense where you don't have you're not on social media, and you shouldn't feel forced to be on social media. So YouTube is the outlet. Let the social media people come off their particular social media platform and come here to YouTube and watch what we're doing here, or go to Patreon. Okay, that's the other option. So okay, gonna end it here. 6:45 Friday night. again, next starting tomorrow, I'm on vacay. I will be getting to do some live streams. I think when I do, I'm going to keep them, relatively, shorter than what I usually do. I don't want to be going on for an hour plus, especially if there's no weather going on. So we'll start that. Look for something over the weekend. I don't know when, and I'll be popping them up during the week as well. Patreon folks, same thing. They'll be popping up from time to time, but I don't exactly know when. And then I'll be back. I'll actually be back probably before the Monday, the 8th. I'll be back probably on next Saturday, coming back from Pennsylvania or DC or wherever we happen to be at the time. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the great weather that most of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic will be having because we've had too many days of rain, and we will see you at some point over the weekend. Good night, everybody.